Hey there. So I'm trying out a new camera and I hope that it works out pretty well. So this is actually part two of a video that I did a part one of already. And part one was about my experiences with spiritual beings, spiritual entities. I went in a little bit about my family's history with them. I went into a little bit about my childhood experiences, which led to these things. And then I came full circle to current times, to things that just happened recently. So, an extension of that is what happened, other things that happened recently that were more in the realm of encounters with, or meetings with, I'd say meetings. One was an encounter, I'll get into that later, but I say meetings because it was way more than an encounter. It was a very personal, deep feeling, deep feelings triggering good times inside. I don't know what you call it, but it was just a really good feeling. And it was more like meeting somebody that you were really pleased and intrigued and felt privileged about meeting. So this day that I had my very first encounter with an extraterrestrial being or someone of not of this planet, where they come from exactly, I don't know. It felt like it was off of the plane of the surface of this planet, though. I did have that distinct feeling. And when I talk about these feelings, it goes into maybe the psychic realm of just knowing. It's kind of like if you're experienced with Reiki, it's kind of like knowing where the spot is, especially if you're in the same place as the person and you can actually physically touch them. It's about knowing where that place is. It's about knowing things. So when it came to this person or this entity, they were in a kind of a human form, but not really. But I felt like, you're not from around this whole part, are you? So we didn't get to that kind of conversation. I was in a coffee shop, and you can watch my other videos as to why I was in this coffee shop, and other coffee shops around the same time period. And I had an encounter with another being, a person, and that was very profound. But while I was having this encounter, and maybe one day I'll go into that, but I don't feel comfortable right now, mainly because it felt like a very private conversation that this person and I had. And I don't want to go into those details because I really value their privacy. But as I was speaking to this person who I just met that day, and it was a very profound experience where they gave me information about things that led me to where I am now, I noticed that there was a person. At the time, I felt they were a person, and they seemed uneasy. You know, in a coffee shop, if you don't, speaking of coffee, yeah, I'm lower than I thought. But yeah, if you don't have a coffee when you're in a coffee shop, you kind of stand out, especially if you're there for a long amount of time. Here in the States, even if you're waiting on somebody, it's pretty much customary to buy something while you're waiting. Some people don't, not everybody, but you stand out a little bit, you know, and then everything else you do past that kind of contributes to whether you continue to stand out. So this person, they would sit down at a table, and the place was packed, by the way. The coffee place was packed. And they would sit down at a table and put their head down. And then I saw them get up, walk outside, and there was glass. There was windows, you know, and almost to the entire corner of the store that they were in. So I could see them walking outside, and then they would come back in, and it seemed like they were restless. And I got the notion that they were almost wanting to get my attention. And I didn't really understand why or what was happening. But after I was done speaking to this other person, I noticed that the being got up. And if I tear up a little bit, I usually get this way when it comes to things that are very profound to me still in my mind. I used to get the same teary thing when it came to the stories and encounters I was talking about with the spiritual entity video. This is the most profound, like right now, and I can see on camera I might be turning a little red, but you know, it's not upset tears. It's just like, oh, this is extreme. So this being got up and they faced me, and we were about a room's length away, maybe 20 feet away from each other, and big room. And they just faced me, and there were crowds of people, you know, just people everywhere. But between this person and I felt like the being was male. They were pretty tall. I'm 5'10". This being was about 6 foot, and they just turned to face me, and they had a hood on, and their face, like this whole area, I'm looking in the viewfinder, this area of their face was all dark and like a big shadow. And all I could see were their eyes, like, and they were oval shaped, like maybe like this shape almost exactly, but like smaller in the size of like a human eye area, socket kind of thing. And they were glowing gold. And I have a perfect example of what color gold. It was this color gold. Almost exactly even the way the light is reflecting off of this. This was just hanging here. I'm in my mom's house, and she likes things like this. She's not like a go-go dancer. She's more like, I don't know if you can see the tapestry, but she likes things like that. So, but that color gold was almost the exact color that their eyes were, and they were glowing. And I don't feel teary, so that's good. And so they, I remember locking eyes with this being, and I was floored. And all I can think of was, thank God there are a lot of people around, because otherwise I'd be super intimidated and probably really afraid. And, you know, I had this like flash of thought, and then immediately this being communicated with me mentally, which isn't something I'm unaccustomed to. But with this being, they let me know, in maybe like not words, but like a notion of like, it's fine. I don't mean any harm. It was more like an expressing, like, I wanted to meet you. I don't know if it was me personally. I have a feeling nowadays it was, but for why, I don't know. And that encounter, going along with the encounter with the person I had met just previously to them, privy? Is privy the word? I don't know. But right before I met them, for me to have met this other being, the encounters almost went hand in hand. And so almost as soon as it started and I started feeling comfortable, the being just went away. And during the encounter, which was maybe 2 minutes maximum, I felt completely paralyzed. And then I remember giving the kind of notion back to the being, like, I understand what you're saying, but my mind was like jacked. It was just like, you know, at a standstill, and I was just like absorbing this creature's energy, and it felt really good. And from there, I started doing research about different alien beings and things like this. And then I found, I guess, one species or one race that kind of fit the description of the being that I had an encounter with. And but that's about as far as I went, because I really didn't find too much about how this being was, but I did find a little bit. I found actually one site that was like the first site that I went to, and it was very interesting and profound. And I did more research about, you know, these kinds of encounters in general, and I found that sometimes you have like a longing to meet this being again. And I did feel that. I did experience a longing, like, wow, you know, that was really interesting. That was really a privileged experience. Wow, I wish, you know, I wonder what it's going to be like if we ever got into each other's presence again. You know, I wonder what more we would talk about. Just a whole lot of curiosity, almost like a crush, but not really a crush. It was just more like an extreme intrigue and fondness. There's extreme fondness. And since then, I had more encounters with people at coffee shops. And I think, too, that might have been, that had the potential of being other entities, like other extraterrestrial entities. Because when I read things, I read that sometimes these beings can camouflage themselves. And I remember having the distinct notion of, when I was observing people, because, you know, right after it happened, it's so fresh that everything is kind of still like linked to that. And I remember like having the notion that a couple people, only two, a girl who was very blonde, and she seemed to fit the description of a race of beings that were blonde and other characteristics. Her coloration is what stood out to me, and the way that she interacted with this other person. But I don't know for sure. I don't know if it was because I was so fresh off the press that everything just seemed like it was linked, or I was really right. But I had a series of very profound experiences after that that I might make a video about in the future, even leading up to that experience. So the next experience that I had was, and you'll learn more about why I was leaving so early in the morning so often in other videos I've had. And so I was leaving home one day, and it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, and the moon was still out, but the sun was up. The sky was very bright and blue and pink, and had some morning clouds, like the wispy kind. And I remember seeing something way off into the distance, and it seemed very far away but bright. And I was like, wow, that's a planet, you know, and it's so bright. It's amazing, you know. And I remember needing to leave because I was very pressed for time, but I'd forgotten something upstairs. So I went upstairs and I came back, and the thing that I saw in the sky was in the same exact position. But then I saw it start to move. And then I was thinking that must be a plane. But the thing is, I went upstairs and came back, and it was in the exact same position. And I'm getting red again because it's very profound. And, you know, I'm thinking it's in the exact same position as it was before. But now it's moving, and it's too big to be a plane because it wouldn't have been in the same position. And then I was thinking it was a helicopter. And then I just saw it like getting closer and closer and closer. But then it completely took an angle and was moving fast. Like it was moving straight and then it took like a beeline. And I was like, there's nothing that humans have made that moves like this, that fast, that far away. And I remember getting the distinct feeling that they could see me. And I got the distinct feeling that they knew I knew that they could see me. It was like a communication. And that's not so foreign to me, because I've had that kind of communication with humans here on Earth, like big distances away. It doesn't matter. So when it comes to these beings, I mean, I look at them like they're more sophisticated than us in some way, every way. I don't even know. Like, why would you even want to communicate with us? I don't know. It seems like there's an intrigue. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that I think about when I get to this point. But I remember distinctly, like, there was nothing on Earth that moved like that in that angle. And I've heard people describe these things because I have a fascination with crop circles and crop circles are my number one fascination. But you know, of course, when you're doing research about those things and just the whole realm, you always run into like spaceships and UFOs and other things that just aren't part of where human technology is now. And I experienced that firsthand. And then that notion, that same feeling of like knowing, is another thing that I got that day. So those were my experiences. They both happened within about a month of each other. And that was about less than 6 months ago. So yeah, I've been wanting to know more. I'm looking forward to maybe something more happening, or more dialogue or discussion between us going on. I don't know, but I wanted to share that just in case it could be helpful to anybody, or if someone wanted to learn what these things were like. I'm hoping that I was able to articulate the experiences in a way that felt more like something that could be relatable versus just a vague description, which I've run into a little bit. And I understand, because when you get into these esoteric things, I've noticed through years of research, months especially in recent times, about very specific topics that I've experienced, that is very hard to write about. And you have to go through so much material just to get, you know, a general synopsis about what's happening. Because I've been through that, because I do well when I can understand things through research. It's how I operate. I'm studying computer programming, a second degree. My first degree is in graphic design, learning software. I've been introduced to Buddhism recently, learning about Buddhism, Christianity, researching Christianity, world research. All these things are things that I'm very, 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 very excited about and intrigued and interested in. So when it came to my awakening, and learning a whole bunch about a lot of things, past lives, relations within soul groups, all of that, my research is what kind of helps me, especially at the beginning when I was really confused, especially with the physical things that happen, extreme like narcolepsy almost, extreme like the fatigue and the periods of different kinds of eating and all of that. I just was like, wow, this is happening. But then when I would read about it, it would almost give me confidence. I'm still in this phase of I need to almost be justified by outside anything to have confidence about what I know. So I'm just now leaving that, but I'm hoping that this will help somebody else in their research. Until next time, I bid you farewell. Thank you. Bye.